Drake and Kendrick Lamar are back in the news, but this time it's for something a little bit different. First time around, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about in terms of the context behind this story in particular. Drake and Kendrick earlier this year went back and forth, blow for blow, track for track, in a heated rap beef battle, diss records going back and forth, ultimately with Kendrick Lamar putting the icing on the cake, winning with his track Not Like Us, which was a bop, West Coast banger, diss record, all in one. And it was done so intricately, so perfectly in a way that it was just ending to Drake in the sense of some people saying that it dethroned him, doesn't take away from his career and what he was able to achieve, but ultimately it did cause him significant injury in terms of being respected and being crowned the king within hip hop culture and in the rap game. Now, some speculate a number of different things. And before I even get in all that, let me just historically, okay, the story behind this is that Drake gave Kendrick his rise early on when he was still unrecognized, not really out there, not really put in the limelight. He took him on tour, showed the world, who he was and that he existed, did a feature with him on his one of his songs, and helped him really blow up and get to the rise where he was. With that said, over the years, the two have had a number of disagreements, taking shots at each other, kind of having this little snubby action going on, and ultimately culminating to 2024 when this whole beef really popped off. And what happened was Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick were supposed to be on a record together. Now, Drake and J. Cole hopped on, Kendrick declined. They went ahead and put this record out, basically talking about the big three, meaning the three of them. Drake and J. Cole did. Now, when Kendrick had heard this track, he came out with his own and said, hey, there's no big three. It's just Big Me, among a number of other things that he suggested in his track. And it kind of fueled this whole thing. So J. Cole comes, drops a record, diss track, hitting Kendrick specifically. Okay. Then all of a sudden, Drake pops in and emerges on the scene. And when he does, J. Cole suddenly bows out, removes the track offline, apologizes to Kendrick, and all of a sudden it's just Drake and Kendrick going back and forth. And it seemed like as Kendrick would release every new track in this whole debacle going back and forth, which, by the way, the real winner here was hip hop culture, the fact that fans were able to enjoy this back and forth by two juggernauts in the rap game. But after every track that Kendrick would put out, it was like more and more people would pull away from Drake. And people who were his friends, people who would support him, were just walking away from him more and more until he was basically all on his own. And then when Not Like Us finally dropped, that was it. It was over. Battle done. And so all of a sudden, Drake kind of went MIA, right? He released a couple records, did a couple things here and there, but just kind of stayed outside and ultimately, took little shots, made little statements through social media, but never really did anything beyond that. It just kind of stayed there. Okay. Now, after all these months and the success that Kendrick has had that's come from this period of time here in 2024, early on, he's going to get a bunch of awards coming up. Grammys are probably going to be loaded for him. Obviously, he got the top spot featured as the main artist in the Super Bowl coming up with Beyonce. Just a number of things happening for him. And people are crowning him as the king of hip hop. So when his new project just dropped this past Friday, a lot of people started listening to it, expecting it. It was highly, anticipated. And some are saying it's not really an album. It's more of like a tape or a pack, right? Neither here nor there. Some people from his team are suggesting there's something else coming out right afterwards called Curfew that he's getting ready to drop. So I'll keep an eye out for that. If it does, I'll let you know. But ultimately, they're saying that this little project that he put out is mid at best. It's got a couple bops, caught a couple bangers, kind of, catching on a little bit here and there. But they're saying that in comparison to his body of work, just from what he did with his energy with Drake, it can't touch it. And so some were saying early on, they were already mentioning that, hey, watch, the real Kendrick is going to be seen by the world once he doesn't have Drake to take aim at. And he's got to stand on his own two legs and create a creative body of work moving forward, not back, because we know he's got some classics. Moving forward, how are those records, those tracks, those projects going to do? And as it stands right now, This is not my words. This is rap culture saying this music is mid from Kendrick. So we'll see what he does with this new, potential project called Curfew or whatever he's coming out with next. So after he drops this on Friday, Monday, November 25th, Drake out the blue, who's been in the shadows with impeccable timing, many claiming this is an absolute strategic chess move, by and through his company called Frozen Moments LLC, filed a petition in New York Supreme Court asking for evidence to build a lawsuit against Universal Music Group and Spotify. Okay, why these two companies? What are the allegations? Well, they're saying that UMG manipulated stream metrics and engaged in illegal pay-to-play schemes to boost Kendrick Lamar's song Not Like Us. And if proven true, this could expose a system rigged to artificially inflate success, all while other artists, even global superstars like Drake, are left at a disadvantage. But this case isn't just about numbers, it's about control over the narrative of hip-hop's most highly profiled rivalry, at least at this moment in time. So Drake is essentially in this claim saying, hey, I'm not just putting myself in this. This is for all artists. Because if this is found to be true, that UMG, Universal Music Group, who is Drake's label, but also Kendrick's, just different extensions as Kendrick is under Interscope. If this is found to be true that UMG, Spotify, and Kendrick's camp all came together and officially collaborated, they're framing this as a RICO case, guys. Like, that's what it actually says in the legal documents. So this could be absolutely massive if this is the case for a couple of reasons. Now, on a lower level within the music industry, what Drake is doing by saying it's not just me, but other artists are disadvantaged by this, is he's setting a precedent that if he wins this, and if UMG and Spotify do not want to adhere, if a judge says, yes, I'm going to allow you to go get discovery, meaning you guys are going to have to produce documents, evidence, we're going to have to pull communications, we're going to have to see what's actually there, see if there was anything going on. If the court allows Drake to do this to UMG and holds them to do it, and he wins, and there's an exposure of actual evidence, which he claims in here, which we'll discuss in just a moment, that this in fact is true, this is going to set the stage for a class action lawsuit for all kinds of different artists to come together collectively and sue the music industry as a whole, which then is going to bring transparency. It's going to dismantle the big dogs on top who are running the show and doing things behind the scenes that are dirty. Hey, honestly, I wouldn't be mad if that happened, because we know it does happen. It's just, can we actually catch them? And what artist has ever come to the stage to try to put something like this in play? There's actually a couple. Michael Jackson, Prince. When Biggie and Tupac were trying to out of their contracts, what happened to them? So Drake, we know, had a $400 million contract with UMG that was signed back in 2022. It's alleging that he's at the near end of his contract. He's fulfilled it and he got the upside to it. So the fact that he's not going to re-up and go independent with his own thing, could this be a way that UMG, Kendrick, who they knew already hated Drake to begin with, plus Spotify all collaborated, came together, a pay-to-play scheme to end Drake's career or to tarnish his legacy in such a way to dismantle him, make him go away, so that even if he did go independent, no one's going to care about him, and they go on winning because, like they say in Vegas, right? The house always wins. So is that the case here? Okay. So let's kind of talk about some of the reactions first and foremost from the culture, because a lot of people have had different things to say about this. A couple people, like DJ Academics, who's always been close to Drake, been his defender, right? He didn't hold back. He actually called Drake's legal moves here as a sign of desperation. On his stream, he suggested that Drake might be losing the cultural battle against Kendrick, and he said maybe because he's losing this, he had to come back and go into court instead of being in the studio instead. Okay, that's Academics' take. Joe Budden had come out and offered a little bit of a different angle, saying and suggesting that this is a chess move by Drake, because if Drake, who's been the golden boy of UMG, by the way, Budden in one of a previous podcasts kind of prophesied this whole thing, said like, hey, hold on a second. We know that Kendrick's using bots. How is it that one of Drake's songs have more dislikes than likes It just doesn't make sense, right, on his YouTube video. So it didn't add up. But he said Drake's been the golden boy, but this lawsuit feels like Drake is saying, hey, I can't win this fight in the traditional way, so I have to go to the court to do it. And so it's a chess move, because if he can use this and prove that UMG and Spotify actually did rig the system, it flips the whole narrative here. It really does. And Elliot Wilson kind of went along with that from Rap Radar, because he added another layer focusing on the bigger picture. He said, look, this isn't just Drake versus Kendrick. This could expose how labels really manipulate numbers across the board. And if UMG did this for Kendrick, who else have they done it for? Okay, hip hop loves a good rivalry. Okay, and that's really what the Drake and Kendrick situation were. But this case feels like it's taking things to a whole new level, because if Drake actually wins and this exposes evidence that UMG, and especially if Kendrick, right? Let's be honest, because by Drake going after UMG and Spotify, it's really him going after Kendrick without going after Kendrick. He's making UMG and Spotify do it. And if he can prove this, then what it's saying is, instead of this being a traditional, real good, natural, organic rivalry between two juggernauts, one guy felt so insecure that he had to pay and get into a pay-for-play scheme, which, by the way, they're alleging they had 30 million bots that were paid for, including the fact that UMG cut a major discount license deal to Spotify for Not Like Us in return for a bunch of streams. Plus, they paid a bunch of affiliates and podcasts and didn't disclose the payments, saying, like, through those podcasts and through those influencers, hey, this is paid for, and this was paid as advertising to push this, which is FTC violations. There's regulations behind that. So was it really organic at all? Okay. I mean, the song was great enough to do it organically, I think. But if it wasn't and it was actually paid for, that changes the whole picture on this thing. And that's just not according to me. That's according across the board, people who are talking about this within the industry. It's fake. And that goes against everything that Kendrick says that he is and what he stands for. So that's major. So let's kind of break down these allegations a little bit, right? So because they're pretty explosive. So first, there's the claim that UMG used bots to inflate streaming numbers. Obviously, we know what bots are. They're not real listeners. They're just mimic real listeners and creating fake plays that boost a song's visibility. It's fake. It's whack. It's not real. It's not genuine. Then there's the accusation for the pay-to-play scheme. UMG allegedly cut Spotify, like I said, a deal for licensing fees in exchange for promoting Kendrick's song, pushing it to users who weren't even looking for it. So let's say you're going to look for your favorite artist and instead you're being delivered a song like this. That's pretty much what happened. So it wasn't a natural discovery. This wasn't disclosed to the public. Okay? People were paid fees to put this out there. Influencers like NFR Podcast were allegedly paid to promote the song without revealing the sponsorship, and that is an FTC guideline violation. So all of this allegedly hurt Drake's visibility and income, but it also raises a bigger question. How much of the music industry success is real and how much is manufactured? Now we know, come on, 6ix9ine, other people all across the board within the industry have talked about this. People pay to get their stuff put on, right? They'll pay for streams, they'll pay for stuff when it comes to your project or a single or a video. But in a battle, like in an actual battle, is that genuinely good to do? No, it's not real, it's fake. Like, you want to go blow for blow and see, like, head to head, let's see what you can do versus me. Let's see who outlasts who. Let's see who's actually better. And if you're paying for that, it's not genuine. It's not real. So Drake's saying that this is manufactured, and really even academics going back to him, he said that streaming is the Wild West. Everybody knows that numbers are fake, but if Drake proves UMG's behind it, that's a bombshell, which is true. And that's exactly what Frozen Moments LLC is trying to uncover through this pre-action discovery. That's what this initial filing on November 25th in the Supreme Court of New York is. So forcing UMG and Spotify to provide documents and communications that might confirm these allegations. And Drake is suggesting that there are whistleblowers who have already provided bulletproof evidence that have and can and will show that all three of these entities, including UMG, Spotify, and Kendrick's camp, were all involved in this in some way, shape, or form. So I think what complicates this more is the timing of it. So we talked about the fact that Kendrick is getting ready to get a bunch of awards. He's got the Super Bowl on deck. What if this uncovers, and obviously he just dropped his project. What if this uncovers that Kendrick, in fact, did do this, and this was a massive scheme, and it was fake? Is that going to hurt his credibility? Would that mean the Super Bowl pulls the plug from Kendrick and says, nope, you can't be here? Does this pull his plug from being able to show his face publicly? Think about the embarrassment, man. After everything he's said and done, if it ends up being the case, what does that make him look like? But then on the flip side, it's a bold move for Drake, because some are saying, man, this is like, for Drake to do this makes him look like a you know what. Why would he do this? Like, nobody in the rap game and rap culture does this, period. This just doesn't happen. So for him to make this kind of move, he's not a gangster, he's not street, and obviously he's not, right? But it's just saying, like, it takes away from the whole persona and shows that how weak he really is. That's what many are alleging and what they're suggesting. But I mean, the reality is, Drake, and put yourself in his shoes for a minute. You've done all this stuff for all these years to reach these milestones, to have all the success, to put your name as the top name and be that top dog for all of these years, just to have your whole legacy be tarnished and destroyed by one situation where someone faked paid for streams, faked plays, bots, etc., to dismantle you and make you look like crap, and then allege all these things about you with sexual allegations, pedophilia, blah, 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 blah. All the various things that were said in Kendrick's songs, if they're not true, think about it. Like, put yourself in his shoes. Would you be doing the same thing to fight for your legacy? And I think most of us could say, yeah, absolutely, especially if it's not true. So, I mean, this could really spark a reckoning, though, at the same time. Because what Drake did is he had joined himself to the rest of the industry, even the small people. And I don't think there are any doubts that the industry does do this. Matter of fact, UMG has been in hot water before, okay? They paid $12 million, I believe, back in 2006 for a payola case. And so if they're guilty again, in 2024, it reinforces the idea that success in the music industry hasn't always been earned. It's engineered, it's manufactured. If Spotify is also found guilty, this is just as serious, because their brand is built upon the whole method or notion of discovery. So if they're found complicit in manipulating what users actually hear, then it damages their credibility and could lead to regulatory scrutiny from agencies like the FTC. But I think it also, like I said, puts together class action lawsuits and a number of other things that can happen here, including shakeups within maybe who the main players end up being for streaming platforms moving forward. So for the industry as a whole in this matter, I think if these practices are widespread, as Frozen Moments LLC claims, which is Drake's company, there could be a push for more transparency in how streaming numbers are calculated, how promotional deals are disclosed. So it's not just about Kendrick and Drake. It's about every artist who has ever struggled to break through in a system that might be stacked against them. And so if we zoom back into now the rivalry itself, because the lawsuit is as much about perception as it is about the law. From Drake's perspective, his legacy is on the line. He's fighting to show that his success was earned, not handed to him. From Kendrick's perspective, right, this could actually strengthen his image, because if Kendrick ends up being found to have no involvement whatsoever, and this whole pay-to-play scheme is whacked and it didn't happen, Drake's career, in my opinion, is completely over. He's done. He's finished. Kendrick will absolutely be crowned, even more so. And it makes him look like he's the people's champ. So I think it's a very slippery slope, and Drake really pressed that button. And so we're about to see this era, right? And the defining success moment dominated either by algorithms, bots, and business deals, or by frivolous claims that end up being moot and absolutely nothing. So where we go from here is this. The court will first decide if UMG and Spotify must comply with Drake's request for evidence if granted. This could lead to a major lawsuit that could reshape the music industry. But regardless of the outcome, the cultural impact is already being felt because here's the thing. After all this took place, whistleblowers' role in exposing these bots that came out and talked about how they were paid, the details of the payments, saying that they received like 5 Gs through Zelle with promises of additional percentages of the song Not Like Us for making it into a viral hit. Like, this is legit stuff inside this document that I'll put a link up for you guys. It also shows all these vulnerabilities, the relevance of the case, etc. After that happened on Monday, on Tuesday, the 26th, Universal Music Group came out and responded. They said the suggestion that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. Okay. Company emphasized their commitment to ethical marketing and promotional practices, stating, "We employ the highest ethical practices in our marketing and promotional campaigns. No amount of contrived or absurd legal arguments in this pre-action submission can mask the fact that fans choose the music they want to hear." So the response came after Drake's, pre-action filing, and ultimately, literally within about an hour after they came out with this statement, Drake escalated the legal battle. Okay, he filed a second petition, but this time in the state of Texas, Tuesday the 26th, alleging defamation. He claims UMG failed to prevent the release of Kendrick Lamar's track, Not Like Us, which he asserts falsely accuses him of several criminal acts. Additionally, Drake alleges that UMG engaged in a pay-to-play scheme by funneling payments to iHeartRadio to promote the song on the radio. This action follows an earlier filing in New York where Drake obviously accused UMG and Spotify of all this other stuff that we just discussed. So the legal move intensifies the ongoing feud between Drake and Kendrick, highlighting the complex dynamics within the music industry, is what the article says. This is wild, guys. So we went from just an initial filing for pre-discovery to UMG saying, hey, we got nothing to do with it, now to an actual defamation lawsuit being filed now in the state of Texas against UMG. The ultimate goal here, I think, is to cause UMG and Spotify to expose something with Kendrick. They're not, if they did something wrong, let's be honest, they're not going to give it up. They would rather go after Kendrick's camp because he's just an artist under the label and say, hey, he agreed to this. This is what he wanted. They're going to put him on the chopping block, and that would effectively end his career, in my opinion, if that's the case. If not, and this happens not to be the case and it's all frivolous and fluff, then obviously Drake's going to be dismantled. But anyway, that's my opinion, and I want to hear what you guys think about this. So do me a favor. I mean, is Drake justified in calling out Kendrick Lamar, UMG, and Spotify in this action, or is this just, a really weak play on his part? Did he effectively end his career, or is this justified because he's fighting for his legacy, if there really is something true here? Okay. So let me know what you guys' thoughts about this. Drop down in the comments below any additional information that you guys have. Be sure to follow me right here on Rumble, YouTube. Daily, we drop 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We are back on deck. I want to wish all of you guys a very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family. Be extremely safe. If you're traveling out there, be watchful. Enjoy your time. Reflect. Be thankful. And until next time, we'll see you soon.